family, I would like to express my appreciation to all my colleagues who are here in the stage today. But before I mention some of them, I would like to highlight to each one of you that we are here up on the shoulders of giants that led GC Secretariat before of us. My first expression of gratitude is for someone that is together with us here on the stage, and I'd like to introduce him. But before him, I need to say that I need to do a special mention for Pastor G. Ralph Thompson. Pastor G. Ralph Thompson was GC Secretary for 20 years, from 1980 to 2000. He's not able to be present today, but together with Linda, his daughter, he's watching this report in Maryland. Thank you, Pastor Thompson, for your great contribution for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And it's my pleasure to also thank you. Thank you for your recognition for Pastor Thompson. And it's my pleasure to also thank Pastor Matthew Bediaco. He's together with us in the stage or on the stage, and he's participating as delegate in this session. Pastor Bediaco served as the General Conference Secretary for 10 years, from 2000 to 2010. My gratitude, Pastor Bediaco, for your leadership. But my special expression of gratitude is to Dr. G.T. Ng, who was the Secretary of the General Conference for 11 years. Please, you can recognize him, and he's together with us here on the stage. A major part of this report covers what happened under his leadership. He is very, very appreciated by all our Secretariat team, not only because he's a dynamic and cheerful speaker, but also because he is a serious and focused leader. Thank you, Pastor GT, for your great and strategic contribution for this church. And I would like also to mention John Thomas. He's here on the stage with us until his retirement in 2020 as General Conference Associate Secretary. He had the responsibility of the Adventist Volunteer Service and then the African Desk, giving his rich background on the African continent, and to him also my word of gratitude. But let me add my word of gratitude also to my colleagues from GC Secretariat and Mission Family and their staff. They are the ones that really produce the data. They are the ones that care for our people, and they are the ones that invest on mission. I am very thankful for their unlimited dedication for Secretariat and also for this church. And finally, my gratitude is to the division executive secretaries who are also here on the stage together with us this morning, and to their colleagues from unions and from the local fields. Our report today will share the brave work of all these individuals who work with data, with people, and live out the mission in the front line. Well, let us begin our journey now, our journey through the GC Secretariat Report. You will hear many specific information today, but I would like to invite you later to go to the Adventist Review, today's edition. Here you can find our written report. And we have here many additional information that we will not present to you today. But we believe that both reports, what we will share with you today and what you can see in this magazine, can be very important for you to create a very comprehensive view about what Secretariat did and is doing for this church. Well, the first presenter today will be Dr. David Trim. He is the director of the Office of Archives, Statistics and Research, the organization that provides the strategic information to strengthen our mission. Welcome, Dr. Trim.
Thank you, Pastor Köhler. As you've heard, this Secretariat report is structured around the three themes of data, mission, and people. Now, my part of the report is, of course, entirely data, but it's also about mission and people, because ASTR is also a place where the heart of mission beats. If we conceived of the Seventh-day Adventist Church's mission simply as outreach, then statistics show us that it would be flourishing. This chart shows 18 years of data on accessions. That is the total of all the baptisms and professions of faith. 2004 was the first of 16 years in a row of 1 million plus accessions globally. But then came the COVID-19 pandemic. From 2019 to 2020, accessions declined by more than 500,000, going down from 1.32 million to 800,000, which was the lowest global total of accessions since 1997. In 2021, however, despite the ongoing effects of the pandemic, accessions increased by more than 200,000, so that they once again topped 1 million. This included 230,970 rebaptisms of people who had been members, had left the church, but have been restored. Some divisions have dedicated programs in place for reclaiming former members, and we hope that all divisions will emulate their example. In all, a total of 1,069,234 people were added to the Seventh-day Adventist Church in 2021. We praise God for this rebound in Adventist outreach and acknowledge the role of our pastors and members in achieving it. If, however, we conceived of the church's mission as keeping as well as adding members, then the Adventist Church faces a challenge, for we experience significant heavy losses, and we know that there will be more to come as membership audits, which we are now calling membership reviews, are implemented around the world. This chart shows annual membership changes over the last 5 years, the changes of different types each year for 2017 through 2021. The lines of green dots show the net accessions for each year. And despite the last 2 years of pandemic, in the 5 years represented by this chart, 5.9 million people were added to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The black dots represent the number of deaths. The lines of purple dots represent living losses. That is the net total of persons dropped from membership, missing members, and what are called negative adjustments, which is a category often used for the results of membership reviews. As you can see, the downward purple line in 2019 is particularly steep. This was the first ever year in which there were more than 1 million living losses. Accessions, deaths, and losses together affect church growth. As a result of their interplay, the church's reported membership at the end of last year was some 21.91 million. Yet, even though during the 5 years illustrated by the chart on the screen, even though in that time 3.6 million people left the church, even this has positive implications for mission. For in certain parts of the world, church leaders now have an accurate sense of their membership, and that means they can plan better, both for outreach and for nurture and retention. And that means, in turn, that both outreach and inreach can be done more effectively and impactfully. Church growth is one sign of successful mission, but we often think of church growth only in terms of congregations or church members, whereas, as the Adventist Church grows, so too do its numbers of organizations and institutions. Now, by organizations, I mean local conferences and missions and the different kinds of unions. The slide on the screen shows the growth in these organizations over the last 50 years, and I show 50 years because it provides valuable perspective. You will see that from 75 union conferences and union missions in 1970, unions have grown, adding two more kinds of union to a total of 138 unions in 2020, an increase of 54%. When it comes to the local conference or mission, growth has been rather more dramatic, rising from 379 in 1970 to 731 missions and conferences at the end of 2020, a growth rate of 93%. Since 2015, conferences and missions have increased by 76 or 11%, while 3 new unions have been added. Now, there are some church members who see the increase in the number of organizations and view it as evidence of the church becoming more bureaucratic and thus as being a bad thing for the church's mission. But in many parts of the world, new conferences and missions power growth. These organizations provide leadership that is close to the local church and therefore responsive to both challenges and opportunities. And they also provide training, resourcing, and equipping of local church members. Unions train and equip conference and mission leaders and provide regional direction. The growth of organizations in Latin America and Africa in particular is associated with dramatic growth rates in congregations and membership in those regions. An increase in the number of organizations can thus be a good thing for mission. Furthermore, as the church grows numerically and expands into regions where once it had no or minimal presence, the number of organizations is bound to grow, serving the increasing and spreading population of Seventh-day Adventists. Another way in which the Adventist Church has grown in the last 50 years is in numbers of institutions, and the slide on the screen now shows the growth since 1970 in the numbers of educational institutions, broken down into the 3 categories of primary or elementary schools, shown in blue, secondary schools, shown in green, and colleges or universities, shown in gold. While tertiary institutions have only increased a fraction over the last half-century, primary schools have increased by 64% and high schools by 570%. Schools are a vital engine for church growth in many parts of the world, so this is an important positive trend. What of medical institutions? And this slide shows all kinds of medical institutions which have grown since 1970 from 329 to 1,976. While the spike you see in 2020 is artificial because it's simply that we had greatly improved reporting from the fields in that year, the overall increase in the last 50 years is profound, representing growth of exactly 500%. This chart compares the overall growth in both educational and medical institutions over the last 50 years. How has the church's workforce grown? This next slide shows the increase in the church's core group of workers, its pastors. In 1970, the church had 13,870 pastors worldwide. At the end of 2020, there were 33,530 pastors, an increase of 142%. As we think in this Secretariat report about people, these pastoral people fulfilling their divinely called vocation to ministry are crucial to the mission of the church. In contrast to pastors, the total of all other employees increased by 159% in the last half century. This is more than the growth rate in the number of pastors, and it highlights that as the church grows, it faces the danger of institutionalization, which tends to be harmful to mission. Yet the difference in the two growth rates is relatively small across a period of 50 years, which suggests that institutionalization is not currently as much of a challenge as some members and leaders may fear, though it is something we need to be on guard against. And it must be remembered too that our 75,000 teachers in schools and colleges are almost like pastors, for in many places, schools drive dynamic church growth. Also important to note is that, as this next slide shows, the number of pastors and the total number of pastors and the number of members have increased in step with each other. More pastors would always be welcome, but the total pastoral workforce appears to be increasing appropriately. In conclusion, as we look back over the last quinquennium in the perspective of the last half century, the fundamental impression is of a growing church. This is grounds neither for self-congratulation nor for complacency. There are trends we need to be aware of, and there are areas in which we can and need to do better. But the data show us how God has led and prospered the efforts of His people in mission. The data I have shared is crucial for strategic planning, and next you will hear from GC Undersecretary Hensley Morovan about Secretariat's strategic plan.
Thank you very much, Brother David.